Welcome to Resilience Unravelled. Hi everybody and welcome to Resilience Unravelled, a podcast that examines all aspects of personal and organisational resilience. A huge all-encompassing subject that covers the ability to thrive in life by harnessing your cognitive, emotional, physiological and contextual abilities. I share stories from people who have thrived despite remarkable obstacles, as well as highly successful practitioners and experts across a range of topics. And this podcast introduces their amazing stories and expertise, as well as my own reflections, perspectives, strategies and tips, which come from my own synthesis of themes and trends from wider learning. You can go to qedod.com/extras to access offers, tools and resources, including free articles and ebooks. For those of you that would be interested in supporting our work and contributing more proactively, you can find our new Patreon page at patreon.com. Then search for Resilience Space Unravelled. So, let's get started. Enjoy the show. So hi there and welcome back to Resilience Unravelled. This week, a different guest, something unusual, a fascinating subject actually, one which I know very little about, and I'm fascinated to find out more. But first, let's welcome our guest from across the pond, Bill McPhee. Bill, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, thank you, Russell. Doing very well. I'm here in Niagara Falls, Canada. And I have the view of the Buffalo skyline, and I'm right at the mouth of Lake Erie. So it's a beautiful day today here in Canada.
And are you a Canadian yourself, or an American who's absconded for good healthcare?
No, I'm Canadian. Yeah, born and raised, and I can prove it. I can say, "How you doing, eh?"
Hey, and a boot.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, I'm really looking forward to chatting. So, talk to me about what it is that you do.
Sure. So basically, my claim to fame is I was diagnosed with an illness known as schizophrenia in 1987, and I was hospitalized 6 different times. I lived in 3 different group homes. I had a suicide attempt, and I spent 5 years on the couch, basically doing nothing, dealing with a deep, deep, dark depression, and basically. To make a long story short, in 1994, I started a publication called SZ Magazine, which was a mental health magazine. And basically, I did that for 23 years. And I retired after that. So I'm kind of retired. And then, but I did write a book in 2014 called To Cry a Dry Tear, Bill McPhee's Journey of Hope and Recovery with Schizophrenia. So basically, I still write. I have that book, and I also have a Facebook group page called Helping Parents of Mentally Ill Children, and I do a live broadcast every Sunday evening at 9 p.m., usually with a guest or something like that. And then I'm working on a second book called Over the Edge, and it's about people who have attempted suicide but who enjoy their life today. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's unpack some of that, if I may. So tell us, for those who don't know, what schizophrenia is.
Sure. Well, schizophrenia, the actual meaning of schizophrenia is split from reality, or being out of reality. And a lot of times it's a misconception. People think about schizophrenia and they think that it's a multiple personality or not. No, but basically it just means split from reality. Mm-hmm. And schizophrenia has basically what it has is known as positive symptoms and negative symptoms. And positive symptoms are symptoms that are added onto your personality that shouldn't be there. For example, if you're delusional, or if you're paranoid, or if you hear voices, those things, you have auditorial hallucinations, illusions, those things shouldn't be in your personality. But with schizophrenia, those are known as positive symptoms. And a lot of times those symptoms can be taken care of with medication. But however, almost some people may say more debilitating with the illness is known as negative or deficit symptoms. And these symptoms are things that are lacking from our personality that should be there. For example, we have an emotional bluntness, an emotional blandness. We have a lack of joy. Um, we depression can set in. We have an emotional blandness, and those are the debilitating for me was those negative symptoms. But and so yeah, so schizophrenia is it affects 1 out of 100 people, and 1 out of every 100 people, and 50% of those 1 out of 10 people will try to commit suicide, and 10% actually will succeed, if you call that a success.
Yes.
So it's a very difficult illness. One of the things that I really want to point out is that a lot of people think that, oh, well, schizophrenia, it's just like diabetes, or it's like heart disease, or something like that physically where you can take medication. But I say no, no, no. Mental illness is nothing like physical illness, because this reason: if I was to fall down and break my arm, and I saw, my bones sticking out of my arm and there's blood and everything, my brain would tell me, Bill, you got to get to a hospital and get that fixed. But the thing is with mental disorders such as schizophrenia, bipolar, schizoaffective, what happens is the mind doesn't know that it's sick. And unfortunately, when these things are happening, the nature of the illness, our mind doesn't know it's not working, and it's broken. It's like a broken brain, but we don't know it. And that's the difference between mental illness and physical illness. And that's why it's known as a cruel illness. Schizophrenia is really a cruel illness.
Yes. Okay. So I mean, people will be interested to know how you have it, where it comes from, in a sense. Is it acquired, or is it a genetic thing?
Yeah, well, there's 3 legs to schizophrenia. There's a genetic component to it, and mental illness runs in my family. So my mom was bipolar, and there's mental illness in my family. Just like in some families, cancer runs in families, or diabetes runs in families, or high blood pressure runs in families, things like that. Mental illness ran in my family. So there's the genetic component to it as well. There's always a stressor to it. Usually there's a something that triggers it. And thirdly, it's a chemical imbalance where the chemicals in your brain are kind of, not doing things properly. And so that's what happens. That's the real causes of schizophrenia. So the most up-to-date research tells you that.
So that's interesting. So basically, you can have 2 of those factions and be okay, as it were, not present with symptoms. But if you have the third one, that's a thing that tips you
absolutely
over.
And like there's studies there. There's studies there where there's twins, and maybe that one twin would get it and another one not, and it's that they don't know why.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so, I mean, it can present at an early age, can't it? I mean, if you've got if you're a parent and you suddenly
usually,
notice, what are the signs you'd look out for in your children?
Yeah, so basically, the signs are schizophrenia usually hits between the ages of, say, 15 and 25, and the reason the reason for that is known as youth's greatest disabler. And women usually get hit a little bit later in life and do better than men. But when people are hit with that at 15 or 16, it's in their development stage where they're just learning how to socialize, and they don't really have their education done and everything like that. So it's known as youth's greatest disabler, and hits between 15 and 24. I was fortunate in the fact that I was hit when I was 24 years old. So I had, I had great life experience. I had working. I used to be a commercial diver in Singapore. I worked in the South China Sea and that. So I had a lot of background and a lot of social skills and different things to allow me to bounce back. But some of my first symptoms, I mentioned that it's genetic and a stressor and biochemical. My stressor was when I was 24, I got a girl pregnant, and I didn't tell anybody about that. I suppressed it and everything like that. And so one day what happened is I suppressed it, and I was looking for forgiveness, and I was diving through the Bible and things like that. And then signs started to happen. I'd actually see words floating off the page. I would see faces in my barn wood, and the knots of the wood would turn into faces. I would call in sick to work. I wouldn't show up. I was paranoid. My sleeping patterns fell off. So those were the first symptoms, and I really did some really wild and bizarre behavior. And what my illness was known, you can have like acute onset and slow onset. So my battle with schizophrenia came on very quickly. It was acute. So like I was out of character within 6 months time. Not myself at all, and very delusional. And when you have slow onset schizophrenia, is that people, it takes a long time, and a lot of time people don't notice a lot of difference, but they think my son or daughter's in their basement, and they're just going through a phase or something like that. But it can, so there's acute onset and a slow onset, and I was fortunate to have the acute onset. And some of my symptoms, like I say, it was just like the movie In a Beautiful Mind, where you would see where Russell Crowe played John Nash, and he was in the Pentagon, and he was seeing all these words and numbers float off the board. And that's things exactly what was happening to me. I thought I was a prophet, very paranoid. So I was really very, very, very ill that way.
So what's the treatment regime? Because I'm imagining this is something that just doesn't go away overnight. There's a lot of different strategies to help people.
That's right. Basically, the thing is that there is medication for schizophrenia. There's lots of drugs out there that try to treat the illness. The thing is, what's really different is that a lot of people don't have insight into their illness. They don't have insight, and so where I'm fortunate, I have insight in my illness. And usually, you have to go through several medications to find something that will work. And for example, when I was on the psych ward, I was on several medications, but they didn't work. And then eventually I found an injectable that was an antipsychotic and a little bit of an antidepressant. And it keeps me in reality, so I'm fine. And and I have a good quality of life. Excuse me. I have a good quality of life. And so I know that if I want to keep my quality of life, I have to take my medication. And unfortunately, 80% of people who take medication will get feeling good, and then they say, "Oh, I'm fine," but then they go off their medication and relapse.
Yes.
80% of people will do that, and I did that too as well, because I needed to know: do I have this illness, or was it fluke, or what's going on, kind of thing.
Yes, and so is that the only cure? Is the chemical route the only thing, or are there more environmental things you can do, or more holistic things that help?
What I say is, I'll tell you, Russell, really, I believe that the foundation of getting back into reality is with medication. Because you can talk all the theory you want or anything like that, but you got to get back into reality, and that's what the medication does. However, that's not the total answer. For recovery, you also need to work on what's known as your psychosocial skills, and you need to develop friendships. You need to develop, something you can do. You need to know what your skills and your gifts and your talents are, because they're really hard to get back into the swing of things. So, for example, what I tell people, the true secret to recovery, Russell, the true secret to recovery is to have enough things for you to do and keep occupied. And I tell people all the time, if you have a calendar, you've got to look for community events. You've got to fill your calendar up and have things that you're looking forward to do. And because recovery is more than just medication, it's having a life. And you know what? And most people, I can remember way back, as kids, fooling around in school, and that people would say, get a life or get a life. Yeah. And that's exactly what's missing in a lot of people with mental illness. They may be stabilized, but they don't have a life. And that's the key in recovery, is try to find your life back again.
And so you talk, I've certainly read on your website that you talk about people with schizophrenia being disconnected from reality. is that what you mean, in a sense that they're actually disconnected from life as well, and
Yeah,
that
I mean,
so you
yeah, I
use
mean, you have people with mental illness who don't have any friends. They're very lonely. They're isolated. There's not a lot of community supports that they participate in, and that they don't have a lot of friendships. And you have to work on those strategies to get that to build a life for yourself. Basically, you need to build your life back.
and I guess the chemicals get you to the state where you can build your life back, and so then getting your life back is how you reinforce and support the next bit. So once the life's there, do you become less reliant on the chemicals, or do you always have to take them?
No, I believe that there are some people that will go off medication and do that, but that's rare. But I've accepted the fact that I'll have to take medication all my life. But and I do have certain side effects. I mean, when I do get my injection, 3 days later I become very sluggish or tired, and I have to rest a little bit more. Um, and the thing is, with with side effects, you have to ask yourself, well, would I rather be in reality and be dealing with some side effects, or do I want to be in reality and have a life? And I think that's very important for people to understand. And because and some of the things, like with the medication, sometimes, a lot of times, it can make you very druggy. And I know that when I was going through negative symptoms, the lack of motivation, the lack of drive, and the depression, it took everything I had just to basically shave and brush my teeth and wash my hair.
Right. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting where the cure is almost as bad as the condition. It's off.
Yeah. And you know what, Russell, I'll tell you where my turning point came, though, to my recovery. And what it was is that when you're dealing with a mental illness and on the couch for 5 years and you're doing nothing and everything like that, everything goes through your mind. You think, oh, if my dad only had a different occupation, or smarter, if I studied harder and all that. And I remember the teacher said, Bill, if you don't learn how to write properly in life, you'll never amount to anything. What you very poor penmanship. My penmanship was very poor, and my penmanship was poor. And so I said to myself, I'm going to prove to somebody that I can do something. And what happened is that I phoned the 40 Literacy Foundation and said, listen, I know how to read and I know how to write, but I want to improve my penmanship. So there was this lady, Martha Mason, that came over, and she penmanship with me. And she said she knew my license was suspended, and wasn't doing much, which was an understatement. And she said, Bill, she said, I go to school. I go to school for social work. I'm the executive director of the Big Brothers, and she said, I'll drive you to school, take a course. I really didn't feel like it, but I did. I knew I had to, and so I took the course, and I did the darkroom stuff, field trips, and I took pictures, but I didn't enjoy it. I just went through the motions. Next thing I know, that Martha, she's saying, to me, she says, Bill, I'm the 7th group chairperson of the 40 Scouts, Beavers, and Cubs. The treasurer. How would you like to be a treasurer? And I thought, oh my God, coming to another meeting, that means I need to wash my hair and brush my teeth and shave, all these things that are difficult to do with negative symptoms. So anyways, I went to that meeting, and that was a real turning point, because I met Martha's husband, I met her children, I met Peter, who eventually I started playing racquetball wash with. I started helping out with camp outs and different things like that. It gave me a whole social set of friends, me for who I was and not what I had.
Right. So tell me about the SZ or SZ magazine. What was that about?
Yes, SZ magazine was, I started it, I got the idea in 1993. I can remember reading a book, and it was called 101 Ways How to Start a Business with Little or No Capital. And I said, that's me. I have no capital, and capital means money, right? But I read that book, and before VCRs were invented, there was this lady who she watched the soap operas on the station, watched the soap operas on 3 different TVs, and she would write what was happening in the soap operas and made a newsletter out of it and send it to her working friends. Well, as soon as I read that, I said, a light bulb came on, and I said, boy, I said, I probably can't do a newsletter on the soap operas, but I could probably on schizophrenia. And that was in 1990. And then I took some business courses at the college, and I took some entrepreneur courses and that. And in March of 1994, incorporated my business, and I started SC Magazine. And I had a good run of that for 23 years. And I traveled across North America and did a lot of speaking and things like that. So it was, we would profile people with the illness, and would try to give hope, and we'd have updates on the latest medications, and just travel piece, just a lot of things like that, just a lot of mental health in general. And we used to call it was to give hope for people, to give them hope.
Great. And I mean, we'll talk about your book in a minute, but where's a good place for people to find resources these days?
So my book, To Cry Dry Tears, on Amazon, or if you go on to my website, BillMcPhee.ca. So McPhee is MACPHEE. So BillMcPhee.ca. And you can actually download the first chapter for free. If you go onto my website, sign up for my newsletter, you'll get a welcome letter with a link to the first chapter of the book for free. So again, that's at BillMcPhee.ca.
Brilliant. That's fascinating. And I mean, what is the book your story, or is it about coping? What's the book's premise?
My book, it's called To Cry Dry Tear, Bill McPhee's Journey of Hope and Recovery with Schizophrenia. And basically, it's my story, and about that. It's basically a biography. And what's unique about the book, what's really unique about the book, is that it has all of my doctor's notes and nursing notes in it, word for word. It actually has a picture of my suicide note in there. And it just really, if somebody wants to know what's going on in the mind of somebody who's delusional or out of reality, it's gives you a really good picture of what's going on with your psychosis or being out of reality.
Brilliant. And if someone obviously can look at your resources, but are there other places you would recommend to find out more information about schizophrenia?
Yeah, well, there's lots of organizations around the world. I know you're in the UK, and there's, you just got to type in Google mental health organizations and different things like that. A big one here in the States is NAMI, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. But there's a lot of organizations and help. And I mentioned to you, I also do a helping parents of mentally ill children with my podcast, or with my broadcast that I do every Sunday evening. And so those resources, and the thing is that people need support. Family members really need support, because it's very, very difficult illness to deal with. And the reason for that is that usually the people who are dealing with schizophrenia, they're out of logic. They're not in logic. We're out of reality. We're out of logic. Where people who are sane, they have logic. They think logically. And unfortunately, the clash comes when you have illogic and logical. They don't mix, kind of thing. And that's the frustrating part with this illness.
Brilliant. So that's absolutely fantastic, Bill. So we've been talking this afternoon to Bill McPhee. You can get hold of him at billmcphee.ca, and his book is To Cry a Dry Tear. Bill, thanks for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Russell, for having me.
No problem. You take care.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I hope you found that episode useful and interesting. Feedback is always welcomed, and if you are in the mood to subscribe to us or even leave a comment on iTunes or Stitcher, that would be amazing. If you want to suggest ideas or even people you would like me to interview, then reach out to us at qedod.com/contact. As I said earlier, you can go to qedod.com/podcasts for show notes or follow the links. And you can go to qedod.com/extras to access offers, tools and resources, including free articles and ebooks. For those of you that would be interested in supporting our work and contributing more proactively, you can find our new Patreon page at patreon.com. Then search for Resilience Unraveled. I look forward to being in your ear next time around. Take care.